This is Tony Hendrick with Painting Spirit, and today I'm going to talk about time, and specifically how to create space and life in your painting with time, using time. And I could do probably 20 of these and not really cover everything there is to cover about time in painting. So I wanted to kind of keep it on track to talking about how to use it to create space in a painting. But there's all kinds of ways of thinking of time. And I guess the way that I'm going to think about time today is if you could picture a forest and you've got a 100-year-old oak in that forest, and it's springtime and you've got some tulips popping out of the forest floor. That gives you an idea of what I'm going to get at with painting today. That you look at the oak tree that's spent 100 years turning into the tree that it is, and then in one spring you got these beautiful tulips that pop up, and there's a different kind of time that's represented by each, and it's different quality because of that. And so I've talked about color, where color can create space, kind of complementary colors or contrasting colors, opposite colors. I talked about red and green being opposite colors, and you saw what just happened there with the red that I introduced to these greenish kind of colors going on. And when I'm working, I'm sure you've noticed that my painting can change quite a bit. And so I just spent quite a bit of, well, not quite a bit, but a little bit of time developing that green background, I guess you would call it. And now I quickly go over it, and each way that I'm putting the paint on has a different kind of time to it. That big brush stroke that I just introduced there was quick and decisive, and introducing a yellow did the same thing. So there's a different time to that brush stroke than there is to these little ones. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking about time today. And time is something that gets a little distorted in some of the ways that we culturally think about time. Got fast food restaurants. Gotta save time, but you're not really saving a whole lot on your health by doing that on a consistent basis. So there's kinds of distortions that happen with time, concepts of time. an artist faces that same conditioning that happens for all of us. I know I've had to work with ideas about time and how to come up with something for maybe a job commission. How do I price this particular job? When I painted billboards, we got paid what was called piece rate. And so it was broken into two different rates. One was a rate for just doing straight copy, which is lettering, and a rate for doing pictures, pictorials. But there was only two rates. And if you've done any painting at all and you get a portraiture commission, it's a little bit different time involved than maybe doing a landscape. Doesn't have to be, obviously. And I do these, so that created, back to the painting billboards, it created kind of a dynamic that I struggled with, because I tended to get selected for doing the pictorials, or the billboards that had pictures. They were called pictorials. And my rate was the same whether I was doing a portrait of a news anchor or a car or so it became very inconsistent on how much I got paid for doing a job. And maybe you have been watching me do these videos, and it's inspired you to maybe do some painting of your own. And you see me in 15 minutes kind of create this work that pops and has some life to it. And maybe you give it a go and it doesn't work out quite the same for you. I'm bringing 30 years of trying different ways of painting, and so I may be bringing something a little different to it. And you might be. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, that, I've spent 30 years painting and maybe it hasn't been quite the same for you. I've walked through my son's elementary school hallway and seen the artwork hanging on the walls, and every one of those pieces to me had life to it. And there's a quote, and I'm not very good at remembering quotes, so I'm not going to get this exactly right, but the essence of the quote, and I think it's by Picasso. So I spent 2 years learning how to paint like Raphael, and it's taken me a lifetime to learn how to paint like a child. And I can relate to that. I was just working on a painting yesterday, and I liked this image that I was using. It was of a forest floor. I had basically needles from pine trees covering the whole floor, and then it was getting to be about fall. You can see I'm slowing down here, and it's creating a different kind of space compared to this that took me a few seconds to create. Anyway, back to the forest floor with the needles, and there were leaves, like maple leaves, kind of gently laying on the top of it. This actually is feeling pretty good right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and introduce another element of something in there. Happens quickly. Actually a different kind of color too, and it added something interesting to my eyes anyway. So I got painting this forest floor. I like these leaves laying on the needles, and I just like the quality of these leaves, different colored leaves, just gently laying on this bed of needles, and the way the light was shining on it. And I started out just out of habit. I'm gonna recreate this and started to slowly paint these leaves, quickly painted the needles. And I realized it wasn't really giving me the feeling that I was looking for. And so I just shifted into a different way of painting. It was more like what I'm doing here, quick and kind of gentle with the brush work. And a little more abstract. But it ended up having more of that quality that I enjoyed about the leaves, gently scattered along or over the top of these needles. So it's another thing about using time to create space. I worked on paintings where I've used the same quality of time throughout the whole painting, and it creates a different kind of quality to the work. That consistency of time in a painting can have some strengths, but it can also, sometimes deaden. I've had a lot of paintings that have felt dead to me because I overworked them, spent too much time on them. But you hear my timer just went off, and I'm actually feeling fairly good about this right now. And I think I kind of touched on a little bit of what I was talking about with timing. So I will see you tomorrow, and get your own brushes out and see what you can do in the meantime. See you tomorrow.